I think one of their sayings was prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child, something like that. It seems like when you look at college campuses and these just epic meltdowns, if a professor assigns Shakespeare or if there's a conservative speaker who comes onto campus, and it just looks like a life and death absolute crisis event. Part of me thinks like a few skinned knees in childhood could have given some resilience to what you're experiencing right now. Do you see that?
Right, right. Oh, good grief, yes. And it's not just isolated with college students. We're even talking about some young parents that I work with that are saying, well, because I tell them, look, y'all are divorced for a reason, but y'all have children. And so the moment you brought that baby, your greatest blessing, into this world, you at that moment took a silent oath to sacrifice anything to give them everything. So you have to have thick skin. You have to, because your kids are going to say things that are going to hurt your feelings. You may feel like they're choosing the other parent over you, but never is a child going to choose to love one parent over the other unless they are coerced into that. But children recognize and know that they need both parents. So how do we cultivate that child being able to love both parents? But whenever I say you need to have thick skin and you have to be willing to make some sacrifices, because we have no problem identifying the sacrifice. If my child were in an ice cold stream, would you jump in and save your child? If my child were diagnosed with something that had to have life-saving intervention, would you sell everything? Like, these are no-brainers. But if my child is going through something emotionally, mentally, psychologically, whatever, to what extent are you willing to make those sacrifices, even if it's with your co-parent? And the co-parents are like, I don't think I should have to have thicker skin, or why should I have to sacrifice myself? Because you're the parent and your child is dependent upon you to, especially when they're little bitty, to make sure that they are safe, fed, have their roof over their head, they have a bed to sleep in. They need you for those things. As they get older, that's as when we start to teach that independence, but you have to make sacrifices even when they're teenagers to make sure they have the tools that they need so they can become independent. So you're going to be sacrificing for the rest of your life. If you don't like that, well, you can't turn back now because here you are with your greatest blessing. So sometimes I just can't get that through their heads that you have to make these sacrifices for children and concurrently teach them independence.
So we have a declining birth rate in this country, and I think a lot of it is people who are either delaying having kids or like, I don't want to have kids because they seem like an inconvenience. And I feel like historically, other than faith in God, like one of the probably the biggest source of meaning and purpose in people's lives is having kids and having a family. How do you see people's psyche shifting from this idea of long-term meaning and purpose to short-term, like having fun and not having this extra responsibility?